Hello, wonderful people. You know, with the political madness that has been unfolding, it becomes even more urgent, I think, for us to decolonize. We must choose to break completely from the current paradigm. Now, while decolonizing might sound like an abstract concept, it's actually a deeply spiritual endeavor. And that's what I want to focus on. To decolonize is to do the spiritual work of freeing our minds, our bodies, and our spirits from the ongoing colonial project. It really is to balance your political resistance with spiritual ascension. And I know there are folks out there who think these two things just do not go together. You can't be involved in political resistance and ascending at the same time. But this is simply not true. We are actually being called at this time to face the shadows of the current order, shadows that are as much within us as they are without us. Now, Martin Luther King often talked about the fact that we are, in a web of interrelatedness, interconnectedness. And if we accept that as true, and I believe it is true, then it's clear that the current paradigm actively works to prevent us from interrelating and from connecting with one another. Racism is separation. Capitalism is separation. Neoliberalism is separation. And so such separation is mirrored in our everyday lives and in our thoughts, in our words, in our deeds. All of this is precisely what the ongoing colonial project predicts and produces. So we have to liberate ourselves. What does this decolonizing spiritual work look like? Well, I'm not going to map out for you a 10-point platform and program. Shout out to the Black Panther Party. Instead, I'm going to offer practices that will help us get there. And I say us because I don't see myself as separate from this work. I understand on a day-to-day level that I need to do the work of decolonizing. So keep in mind that I am not interested in shifting your focus from resistance or protest or any of that stuff. I'm actually inviting you to come into a certain kind of balance, right? So here's a practice no one really talks about in terms of decolonizing, and that is meditation. Now, before you start going down the path of cynicism, I want you to ask yourself this. What does it mean to internalize the values of capitalism, racism, patriarchy? You can just go down the line, right? Well, it means you integrate them into your body, into your spirit, into your mind, right? Right into your mind. So meditation is very important for decolonizing. Through it, we notice not only our attachments to, say, resentment, unforgiveness, desire, love, but we could also take notice, of our attachments to the ongoing colonial project. We can begin to see how deeply ingrained it is in us, in our moment-to-moment thoughts. And then we can do the work of releasing our attachments. And with persistence and deep practice, we might ultimately see there is no decolonized mind or colonized mind, right? We might rest in the spaciousness of no self. No self to colonize, no self to decolonize, but we'll save that for a rainy day. That's a very deep practice, and maybe I'll get to that place in this lifetime. So I suggest a very simple meditation, a meditation on separation. I suggest when you sit still and quiet and start to quiet your mind, you take your deep breaths, and you just get into a place of stillness. That as you notice your thoughts, you notice the content of your thoughts. You notice some of the thoughts that are sort of the creatures of the ongoing colonial project. Maybe they're thoughts in which you are casting blame on a group of people, right? Or maybe there are thoughts where you are repeating some of the ideas that the patriarchy has of women and men, and you're sort of those sort of ingrained thoughts that you don't really think about the content as you're meditating. You might meditate, oh, okay, that's a thought, another thought, and thinking. What if that meditation is to notice also the content of the thinking. I'm thinking colonialism. I'm thinking of the paradigm. I'm thinking in terms of the paradigm. And let it go. I'm not asking you to hold on to those things. But your meditation, in your meditation practice, you just notice it. You don't beat yourself up about it. You don't stay attached to it. But maybe after your meditation, get a notebook out and write down the things that you noticed about your attachments to the ongoing colonial project. How many of those thoughts that came and left and came again were actually parts of the ideologies that are driving us in this sort of downward spiral, right? That are capturing our hearts and minds and spirits, and that are cultivating separation. Again, this is not to sort of get in a place of being consumed with what your thoughts are, or even, certainly don't want to berate yourself about having those thoughts. It's to notice just how much you've integrated the paradigms in our present society. And so try that particular meditation, see where it takes you. Again, you're still, the whole point is to sit and, still your mind, but it might be worth your time to pay attention to the content of the thoughts that keep passing through your mind. All right, let me know how that goes for you. Thank you for your time. If you are so moved, like, share, and subscribe. I really appreciate it. And until we meet again, be loved and absolutely be free.